Hello and welcome to Nancy Good Aim the Space Ranger. This is going to be chapter 24. That's 24 of 56, so we're nearly halfway there. Okay, hen is a daw, is a tree, and away we go. The fourth night of the first human expedition to another planet was short and bright. 4 moons hung low in the sky over the Jupiterian forest of Proverbs, and on a high, wide branch in that forest were 3 Jupiterians named Bip, Morcator and Mjacta, a Martian sheriff, a Martian waitress/astronaut named Martina Ruddlesplitch, and European Space Agency mission specialist Nancy Good Aim McGinley. All 6 had fallen asleep listening to a pack of marmsticles squabbling over the remains of a Jupiterian wizard named Obleron, and had woken to the sound of Spontalagers whistling. Bip, Morcator and Mjacta then made good use of the elastic property of spongorial vines to transport themselves and Nancy, Martina and the sheriff to a roughly cleared area of forest next to a stream where the forest premier and only whistling Spontalager exporter, a woman named Breezy McEaspog, had a treehouse home. Bip, Morcator, Mjacta, Nancy, Martina and the sheriff all had their backs to the stream and were facing up to Breezy's elevated home when Bip began shouting. "Hey, do you want any jobs done in your garden, Mrs. McEaspog?" he yelled. "Piss off!" came the reply. It was followed by the shutters opening violently in the largest of 3 windows facing the stream where the 3 Jupiterians, 2 Martians and European Space Agency mission specialist Nancy McGinley were standing, and a wizened female humanoid head appeared to add an angry glare to the "piss off" reply. "That was a bit cheeky," noted the sheriff. "Quiet!" shushed Bip. "That's Breezy McEaspog you're talking to," he whispered. The sheriff ignored Bip's advice and yelled, "No, I will not. I will only piss off if I want." Bip, Morcator and Mjacta took several steps backwards and shuffled together behind Nancy, Martina and the sheriff. "And if I wanted to piss off, I would, if I liked. And if I didn't want to piss off, I wouldn't, if I wanted." "Quiet, you big dope, you'll get us all killed," whispered Bip. "Yeah," agreed Morcator. "Yeah," agreed Mjacta. "Listen to me, Jupiterian. I will say and do what I like, if I want," continued the sheriff, "because I do not answer to treehouse-dwelling Jupiterians, or anywhere else dwelling Jupiterians, or Martians, or any other creature, alive or dead. I answer only to the gut." "What is that fat lad saying to me, Gumgoller?" He's saying that he talks to the gut, Mrs. McEaspog. Do you need any work done in your garden?" replied Bip. He was now standing behind the sheriff. His colleagues Morcator O'Jumlan and Mjacta Flart had taken shelter behind Martina and Nancy. Of the 3, Bip had the safest position. "He talks to the gut? About what?" I don't know, Mrs. McEaspog, but, we were wondering if you needed any jobs done in your garden. What with Natey being dead?" "Natey is about as much use to me alive as dead. I often wondered if he had a pulse at all the way he carried himself about the place. Now, what's all this about the pudgy extraterrestrial being able to talk to the gut?" "I hope that buckety old hag wasn't talking about me," noted the sheriff. "She was, Sheriff," whispered Martina. "You're the only one here who talks to the gut." Breezy McEaspog craned her bony head out of the window towards the 6 visitors to her potentially could-be a garden/area of cleared forest. The main points to her appearance were a shock of white hair, wild eyes and missing teeth, and a remarkable collection of wrinkles worn into leathery skin. She squinted her eyes. "I can't see you, Bip. Are you hiding behind the fat fella? Is it just him that can talk to the gut, or is it the same for all extraterrestrials?" Just him, Mrs. McEaspog. We were just seeing if you needed me and the 2 lads to do a bit of work for you in the garden, in return for advice on how to get out of here into the stormy hills. We're helping these 3 extraterrestrials find their way to Hobla Graniker. And, if you were happy with the work, maybe a few, Spontalagers as payment?" Breezy squinted her eyes. "Right, well, yeah, we'll see. The first thing ye can do is look busy. The 6 of ye standing there doing nothing is a disgrace. And I'd be embarrassed if there was anyone I respected here to see ye. So get started, and send that pudgy extraterrestrial up to me. I want to find out about the creator of the universe. Actually, send the other 2 up while you're at it. 3 ye Jupiterians will be enough to make it look like there's work being done." Bip was almost apologetic when he wrapped Martina, Nancy and the sheriff in spongordial vines. He then gave a "sorry, I have to do it" type shrug to each of them in turn as he cut the vines loose. After which Martina, Nancy and the sheriff found themselves standing on a rough wooden platform next to an open rough wooden door leading to the dark and pungent interior of Breezy McEaspog's treehouse. This meant they were standing 15 metres above the roughly cleared forest/garden and facing the side of the treehouse which faced into the Forest of Proverbs. And at the open window, Breezy McEaspog and the stream were on the opposite side. 15 metres below them, Bip, Morcator and Miacta each held out their Hoblegraniger Defence League axes and began making a decent job of looking busy while doing nothing. "Good, that's very good, Gallagher. If ye lot keep that up, ye can have one Spontalager each. But I want to see ye busy for the whole of the morning." Breezy McEaspog then uncraned her neck and disappeared back inside the house. Morcator and Miacta immediately stopped looking busy and stuck their middle fingers up at the now empty window. "Ye three extraterrestrials, get in here now!" The sheriff was the first to enter into the musty darkness beyond the rough wooden door leading from the rough platform into the treehouse. He was followed by Martina and Nancy, and all three saw 3 windows with the shutters closed and beams of light streaking in that showed a dusty, damp wooden room, a small, mouldy bed against the wall with the 3 windows, a ceramic toilet above a hole in the floor, a faded brown padded chair, a large metal box about the size of a fridge freezer with a hinged door on top, and Breezy McEaspog next to one of the windows, who appeared to be smiling. "Ye lot are probably not used to seeing somewhere as fancy as this. Don't worry, everyone that comes here has the same reaction. And it's probably a bigger shock for ye, because you're extraterrestrials, to see opulence like this," she said. "But remember this moment when you get back to your own planets, so you can say to all your mates, ye lot can live like Breezy McEaspog, with a lot of hard work and sacrifice." Breezy hobbled over to the padded chair and sat down. The toilet and bed were behind her and the large metal box was to her right. This meant she was facing Martina, Nancy and the sheriff, who were standing just inside the door and trying not to breathe the damp, faintly vinegary odour that hung in the air. This daft old hag must have had her Von Tullium pop out from under her longitudinal vestibule. Come on, we're leaving. "We should at least ask to see if she knows a way out of the forest," said Nancy. "Ha! A fallen longitudinal Von Tullium is what everyone first thinks when they see a place like this, fat man, because their minds will not want to admit the glory of this home. It's all just too much. And from my experience of planet Jupiter, and that is an experience of long and many days, not one person could admit to themselves the true loveliness of this house. Every last one has the same response as you. I think it is the mind's way of protecting its owner from an overwhelming beautifulness. The woman is mad," noted the sheriff. Breezy held up a bony finger and said, "Whisht! Will you listen to those idiots?" Martina, Nancy and the sheriff briefly silenced to hear the inspiration of the whisht and the identity of the idiots. It came in the form of bickering from below and sounded like, "Hey, shut your face, Morcator. Why? Because I know how good the Blarden show was, or because it kills you to know you're wrong? Yeah. The Dragon Blarden is pure goiter, lads, and if you're not going to face up to it, then you can piss off out of the Defence League again." "Well, how about this, Gallagher? Did you ever wonder why you were the only one who went to see the travelling show about the Dragon Blarden and you didn't like it? I'll tell you why. It's because you don't have a clue about anything that's good." "Yeah, that's right, Morcator. He doesn't. How in the 9 triangles did ye know what every person who watched that show thinks? And anyway, the two of ye are a pair of flutes." Breezy creaked back up from the padded chair, turned her back to Martina, Nancy and the sheriff, hobbled over to the middle of the 3 windows that had been behind her, angrily flung open the shutters and yelled, "Have ye 3 simpletons forgotten I have a chest full of mumple-dump sitting up here with me? Did ye come here for food or to get smongulated? Because I don't mind gathering up a flaunch of mumple-dump and firing it right up your anterior cavities, and I wouldn't even need to leave the treehouse to do that." Breezy's very Jupiterian threat got 3 rapid and definite apologies from the ground below. Sorry, Mrs. McEaspog. Yeah, sorry, Mrs. McEaspog." "Why have ye 2 got your hands on your hips?" "Bip, sorry, Gallagher Unterwackle said he doesn't like the travelling show about the Dragon Blarden, Mrs. McEaspog." "Yeah, he did. That's right, Morcator. He did, Mrs. McEaspog." Well. A pair of tattletales it is, who prepare to put their hands on their hips instead of work. Well. That's how it is, so. because I can see that Bip is holding his axe right now and has the bright red glow of someone who was clearing a garden. My garden, with me above it. And I know for a fact that nobody who has seen the show about the Dragon Blarden didn't enjoy it. Which means you, Marketer O'Yumblan, and you, Myack the Flart, are lying to my face. And it's only early in the day too. Breezy McEaspog turned her back to the treehouse room to face Martina, Nancy and the sheriff, said nothing, and lunged for the metal sideways refrigerator-sized box. She did so quickly, quicker than either Martina, Nancy or the sheriff expected her aged frame to be capable of. "Stand back, extraterrestrials!" she cackled. She then opened the top of the metal box. Beams of yellow and white light poured out through the open lid. Breezy placed one of her bony hands into the light and closed a fist around the beam. She shut the lid, which snapped closed with a flump. Breezy returned to the window, extended her hand that had grabbed at the light, and opened it with the palm facing down. "And that's what happens to tattertails!" she cackled. What Martina, Nancy and the sheriff heard was a pair of loud screams begin and stop abruptly. What they saw was a levitating collection of severed, but not bloody, body parts float in single file through the window on a haze of light and hover about a metre above the ground next to the window. Martina, Nancy and the sheriff silently counted 4 feet, 4 elbows, 4 hands, a collection of internal organs, 3 legs, 2 torsos, and the bodiless heads of Marketer O'Yumblan and Myack the Flart. Martina, Nancy and the sheriff then saw Breezy McEaspog retrace her lunge to the metal sideways refrigerator-sized box and open it for a second time, and all the bloodless frozen limbs and organs float over and down into the glowing white-yellow interior of the box. "You forgot one of the legs, Mrs. McEaspog," came Bip's voice from outside the window. What Bip had seen was Breezy McEaspog lean out of her treehouse window and cast a flaunch of Momfeldamp from her right hand. The Momfeldamp quickly enveloped and dismembered his 2 Hoblagranic Defence League colleagues before hoovering their neatly disassembled bodies back in through the open shutters and into the treehouse. "Mrs. McEaspog, you left one of the legs down here. I think it's one of Marketer's," he repeated. "And it's making the garden look untidy," he added. Breezy quickly opened the top of the sideways refrigerator-sized metal box, pinched a small beam of light between her forefinger and her thumb, and flung it out the open window. This was immediately followed by a neatly severed leg in a cloud of light rapidly floating in through the window and landing itself into the box. Breezy shut the lid for a second time and said, "That's that," followed by, "I should have never given those 2 jobs. Gallagher is fine, he works away, but those 2 are useless. At least now I'll be able to make something from their ingredients." She then sat back down in the padded chair and nodded towards the sheriff. "Now, what's all this about you being able to talk to the gut?" The sheriff is the local Martian representative of the creator of the universe," explained Martina. "He speaks with him through his mind. Isn't that right, Sheriff?"
Yes, well, yes it is. And why do you ask, Mrs. McEaspog?"
"None of your business. And I certainly wouldn't tell you, because the reason I ask is to see what the gut makes in my garden. It's taken me some time to create it, almost a lifetime of sacrifice, in fact."
"Well, why don't you ask the gut for her, Sheriff?" asked Martina.
Well, yes, that is something I could do, I suppose. Wait till I get a look at it again."
The sheriff stepped from where he was standing inside the rickety wooden door with Martina and Nancy and walked across the room, past the seated Breezy McEaspog and the sideways refrigerator-sized box containing the mysterious Momfeldamp and the severed body parts of Marketer O'Yumblan and Myack the Flart. The sheriff stood at the open window. He craned his neck out the window and looked down.
"Did you find out how to get out of the forest, Sheriff?"
asked Bip.
"No," replied the sheriff. "I'm just taking a look at Mrs. McEaspog's lawn, so I can ask the creator of the universe what it thinks about her gardening. Your 2 friends have been dismembered and their body parts are now inside a box up here in the treehouse." "I saw that all right," Yell replied Bip. "And it's good enough for them." "Right," said the sheriff. He then stuck his head back in the window and turned to face Martina, Nancy, and the back of the seated Breezy McEaspog. "Right,"
he said again. He then walked to the middle of the room so he could be seen by all 3 of the women and cocked his head sideways. Martina, Nancy and the seated Breezy watched as he closed his eyes and looked upwards.
"The gut said it's an okay garden,"
he said finally.
"Not great," he added, "but okay. There are a lot better than it. Probably most gardens. Definitely the ones on Mars."
The sheriff then opened his eyes and faced Breezy.
"Yes, the gut thinks your garden is okay."
"Harf!"
snarled Breezy.
"Flungle!"
she added.
"Gar tucket! Blunk! How is this possible? It is supposed to be the greatest garden in all the universe, and it is not? Blunk! If it were any other creature that called my garden just okay,
I'd slice open its microbial lunkles and feed them to the marmsticles. Blunk. But if the creator of the universe said it, then it has to be right.
Breezy creaked to her feet and hobbled over to the window.
Well, someone has to be at fault, and that someone has to be the gardener.
Breezy craned her neck out of the window.
The creator of the universe says you're a rubbish gardener, Gumgallagher. Do you know what that means?
Breezy paused to hear her reply, and when she got none, yelled,
It means you're an embarrassment to me in front of the gut.
Breezy uncraned her neck from its outside downward stare and back into the room. She staggered over to the sideways refrigerator-sized box, opened it, and grabbed her right hand around one of the yellow-white beams of light that shone out. She retraced her stagger over to the window and stuck her right hand out.
Know this, Gumgallagher. Today is the last bit of rubbish gardening you'll ever do for me, because I'm sending you to the Labyrinth of Chunticle to dig for all eternity.
Wait, interrupted Nancy. She looked to the sheriff and then Martina to see if they would add to her protest, but they didn't. We need Gumgallagher, to help us rescue some people. Can you not let him off? I'm sure he did his best. Nancy looked to the sheriff and Martina for a second time. Isn't that right, Sheriff? Martina, isn't it?
I suppose he does know his way around here. Yes,
agreed the sheriff.
Fine,
said Breezy.
Suit yourselves, then. All four of ye are banished from the Forest of Proverbs to the Labyrinth of Chunticle for all eternity.
Breezy then opened her right hand.
Flink, bleep, barp, kisp, glunk, multiple, zip.
Nancy immediately found herself inside a dark tunnel holding a pickaxe. Beside her was the sheriff, also holding a pickaxe. Beside the sheriff was Martina, also holding a pickaxe. And facing them was Bip, with an axe in his hand. The tunnel they were in had dark compacted clay walls, was about 10 metres wide, and was about as tall as it was wide. It was lit by fire torches buried into the walls about a metre from the ground and spaced roughly 6 metres apart on either side. The tunnel stretched into the distance in both directions. But apart from that, there was nothing, except a musty smell. Where are we? Asked Martina.
The Labyrinth of Chunticle,
answered Bip. But how did we get here?
Monfaldump. Breezy keeps a chest of it up in her treehouse. I'm surprised you didn't notice it.
We did, said Nancy.
Then why did you ask?
What is Monfaldump? Asked Martina.
What's Monfaldump? What kind of a question is that?
Asked Bip. He stepped back to eye Martina, Nancy and the sheriff suspiciously, which meant he turned to each of them in turn and quietly scanned their eyes.
Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting you're extraterrestrials. I take it you don't have Monfaldump on Mars, or on your planet either, Nancy. Well, you're lucky, because it does more harm than good, and is the reason we are here now.
Bip then dropped the axe he was holding onto the ground and scratched his armpit, blinked, sniffed, and looked around.
Well, what is it then?
Monfaldump?
Yes?
It's hard to describe as you don't have it on your planets. I suppose you could call it purebred magic, if you wanted, like. Breezy is one of the few Jupiterians that has some. In fact, she might be the only Jupiterian to have some. Though I can't speak for all of Jupiter. It's a big place. Anyways, the Monfaldump, or at least the chest full of Monfaldump that Breezy kept in her house, is the reason that everyone is scared shitless of her. Because it means she can condemn you to an eternity of something horrible, like digging in the Labyrinth of Chunticle. And she could do it in a heartbeat, like you've just seen.
Right. And what is the Labyrinth of Chunticle?
I don't know. I've only been here as long as ye. And the first I ever heard of the place was when Breezy cackled,
Suit yourselves then, all four of ye are banished from the Forest of Proverbs to dig the Labyrinth of Chunticle for all eternity.
Bip then turned to Nancy. Why don't you all ask Nancy? This is supposed to be her story. Martina and the sheriff looked to Nancy, who turned to face up and down the length of the corridor, and then back at Bip, Martina and the sheriff. All three waited for her to speak. Well, it's some sort of clay tunnel, and Breezy considers digging in it a punishment. And by the sound of her all eternity comment, there's a chance it goes on forever.
I don't believe you,
said the sheriff.
It's a trick.
Martina looked accusingly at Nancy. Is it? No.
Are you cutting us?
No. I don't think it's a trick, Sheriff. Could you ask the gut? Asked Martina. The sheriff nodded, cocked his head sideways, looked up at the clay tunnel ceiling and closed his eyes.
The gut doesn't really know what it is either, he said.
And that was it for the morning of the 4th day of the first human crewed mission to another planet. A missing spacecraft and its crew of 3, a missing European Space Agency mission commander named Jerry Staunton, European Space Agency mission specialist Bart McMurrow and a ladder on top of a Spontalager transportation robot in the Sea of Uncertainty, a sideways fridge freezer-sized metal box full of severed Jupiterian body parts, Monfaldump, and the leader of the Hobbler-Graniger Defence League, European Space Agency Mission Specialist Nancy Goodale McGinley, a Martian sheriff, a Martian waitress/astronaut named Martina Ruddlesplitch, inside the Labyrinth of Chunticle on Jupiter. Sorry, I mean inside the Labyrinth of Chunticle under the surface of Jupiter. And that's it for chapter 24 of Nancy Goodale the Space Ranger. So getting halfway, and the next one will be along in either a week or two. Chat to you then. Thanks for listening.